with my chopping, I want to demonstrate a nice hearty vegetable soup. You have vegetables that are cruciferous vegetables that are good for the heart. You have lots of different colors, so they are good with a lot of different nutrients. And so what we're going to do first is I'm going to take a couple of tablespoons and put some olive oil in a Dutch oven. A Dutch oven is a large pan with 2 handles on it. Always measure over the pan, so if it spills inside the pan. The next thing I'm going to do, I need a half a cup of several vegetables. So I've already peeled my parsnip, and so I will take the French knife, again do the pinch, the other 3 fingers wrap around here, and you use the tip that stays on there. You basically cut with sort of the middle and the back of a French knife when you are cutting. And then you have nice slices that are going to go into the soup. I've already peeled this parsnip, so it's ready to cut. I am stabilizing it back here rather than using the claw, just to hold it in position for myself. And I have some nice slices for the vegetable soup. Now I probably could cut this, I want to show you nice slices. I'd probably dice this up and throw it in the soup also. With the carrot, I have some slices already cut, but just kind of showing you to prepare carrot, you can just take your vegetable brush. When we're talking ergonomics, I just wanted to show you this brush that you put on your finger so you don't lose a grip of it. And then you're going to wash your carrot by scrubbing it under water. I've already done that. And so then you cut the root end off and you cut the stem end off. And then you take your peeler and peel it. You can use the outside of the carrot. I didn't like the looks of this outside, so I'm going to peel it instead. And then I'm going to again use the smaller pieces of the carrot. And sometimes you can cut a carrot at an angle. It gives it a little bit more character. It makes a little difference between an ordinary cut and a chef type cut. So it gives it more of that oval look. A little bit more of a specialty cut instead of just the plain old round carrot. So I have my half cup of carrot. I have my half cup of parsnips. I'm going to put that in the oil. I'm going to take the leek that I had talked about. And when you are using the vegetables, you sometimes want to take off the outer leaf because sometimes there's dirt lurking underneath the stems. So we want to rinse that off. And then what we are going to do is remove the root end. And I usually like to do this more to the side of my cutting board because that is, if there's any bacteria, that is what's holding the bacteria. You can see the dirt, and that can have a lot of germ and contamination on your cutting board. And so I cut in a different area, and again, just cutting some thin slices of the leaf. It's kind of fun how it kind of just breaks apart into nice little slices, and we'll throw that into the pot, the Dutch oven. So we have our leeks. The next thing, it calls for 2 cloves of garlic. And as I showed you, this is a bulb of garlic. These are the 2 cloves. And so I'm going to dice or mince them small so that I can get that out. So the first thing I want is to get that dry skin off of the garlic. Putting the blade down, holding it down tight to the board so it doesn't cut me. Making sure that doesn't scoot away again from me. And just smash it a little bit so that skin gets loosened so I can easily peel that off. And then I want to cut that root end off. And I might even smash this a little bit more. Sometimes, just because garlic is kind of slippery, some chefs will take a little bit of salt, sprinkle it on there, give it a little grit so it stays in place, and then just mince it through. We have our 2 cloves of garlic. The next thing I'm going to do, I have 3 stalks of celery I'm going to add to the soup. So I'm going to cut off the stem end. It's been exposed in the grocery store and stuff, and so I want that off. I also want this root end off. I want to cut some bad spots off, if there's any bad spots. Another thing that we like to do sometimes with celery is devein it. Just kind of pull off those strings that get caught in your teeth. Just makes the celery a little bit more pleasant to eat without the strings getting caught in your teeth. So that's called deveining the celery. String all over the place. I have another bad spot I'm going to cut out of there. And I'll do the last string of celery. And then I'm ready to dice it. So I'll cut the celery into smaller pieces that are a little bit more pleasant in your soup. And then I can stack up push the celery together and cut it all in one cut. Save myself a little bit of time when I am trying to cut it into small pieces. And there I have the celery. I just have one more thing, and that would be to cut up a small onion. This recipe calls for a fourth cup of sliced onion. So I'm just going to take a small onion. Instead of measuring it, it is just for a soup. And so I'm just going to take the whole onion because I don't want anything wasted. Of course, we want that papery outside off because it is not pleasant to try to chew through it. So I'll just cut that off. The main thing you want to do, a lot of people say they cry when they cut an onion. The most important thing to remember is don't cut the root. Try to keep the onion together. Make sure you have freshly sharpened your knife, and it'll keep you from crying while you cut the onion. Unless, of course, you want to cry while you cut the onion. Again, it said some thinly sliced onion. Now, as I was holding it, one of the things I could do to get a little bit more stability is cut a chunk off of my onion, and then it sets a little nicer for me. So when I'm doing the claw, as it gets toward the end, I can hold it a little bit more stable. And I throw that onion because the root, because I don't want to start crying. The faster I can get my onion cooking and in the pan without cutting that root, the less I'm going to cry. So now I have the first ingredients, and with that I'm going to take my Dutch oven And I will just stir it over medium heat and saute it. So I'll be back in a little bit. So while my vegetables are sauteing, I'm going to cut up my kale. Now this rib in the back of the kale is a little bit hard to chew through, so I like to cut the greens off of there and just use the leafy green part of the kale. And I want about a cup, so I'm just going to use 2 stalks of my kale. I have a little bit of kale left over for another dish that I'll make. When you're cutting something leafy, you kind of bunch it together, and again, keeping your fingertips out of the way, but kind of holding the bunch together, just cut through it. Again, it's a preference how big you want your leaves to be in your soup. Cutting it sort of small, kind of a medium cut. So that's part of my greens that I need to have. That would be my kale. Might be a little bit more than a cup, but it'll cook down and give us lots of nutritious, cruciferous vegetable. The next thing I need is a little bit of cabbage, and so I'm taking a shortcut. Instead of buying a head of cabbage, I'm just going to measure. There's some carrots in here too. It's a coleslaw mix, and I get a little purple cabbage in there for a little bit more color. So I'm just taking about that much, and those are some more of my lettuce or the leafy greens that I will have. So I'll check my sauteing vegetables. Oh yeah, they look just perfect. So I'm going to turn the heat down on them, and I'm going to add these leafy vegetables, and they don't take much to heat up. I'm just going to stir them around so they get a little bit of that oil on them. And then I'm going to cover it to kind of steam them, turn it down just a little bit so nothing burns. And while they are steaming in there, I'll set aside my cutting board. And I'm going to open a couple of my containers using some different can openers that have been planned. Now, when we talked about the word ergonomics are things that are planned for different reasons. So first I'm going to open my northern beans. This is a can opener. It's going to actually cut under instead of around here. And by doing the cut there, it's going to be a safety cut. So as you turn it and open it, the whole lid will come off, and this edge is not sharp, and that's kind of desirable. And then I'll drain those beans. The next thing I want to do is cut my tomatoes. Now again, when we're talking about ergonomics, then we want to have some special equipment to kind of help us cut the get the lid off of a can. Some people have trouble with hand cranking a can opener. They might have different types of can openers, but this one is a tornado. Again, planned by somebody who was thinking about ergonomics, a designer. They thought if the person only had to push the button, they didn't have to hold it in any way. It would go around the can. It cuts again under the lid like the safety lid. When you hear it make a different noise, it's gone all the way around. You push it, you notice it goes backward. And then that lid is now ready to take off and has been cut off with the tornado can opener. So our cans are ready. We also are going to have a broth. This is a vegetable cooking stock. I like to have the stock versus broth. Stock has a little bit more flavor because it's cooked with a few vegetables to get some more flavor into it, and so I like it a little bit better. And so we'll be adding those after we steam our leafy greens a little bit. And I'll drain the juice off of the beans. I'll also be adding to this a bay leaf. which is usually sold in a jar or a bag, and it's just a stiff leaf. Now that has to be taken out before the soup is eaten, because just like the onion skin, you can't bite through that. It's a very undesirable leaf, but it really flavors the soup. The same with the thyme. I could take all these little pieces off here, or you just throw the whole sprig of thyme in there, and I'll remove the whole branch, because again, the thyme, this does not cook down so that you can chew it, and so you are just going to take these two things out of the Dutch oven before you serve the soup. And there you have it, a nice, hearty vegetable soup to enjoy and make you feel so good.